Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is attention to details while renovating. While flipping houses, paying attention to the small details can make a huge difference. Here are 5 reasons why focusing on details is crucial. Number 1, first impressions matter. Buyers often make decisions based on their first impressions. Small details like fresh caulking, straight grout lines, or perfectly aligned tiles can make a property feel well cared for and high quality. Number 2, details affect perceived value. Buyers equate the quality of visible finishes with the overall quality of the home. Precision in painting, fixture installation, and finishing touches can increase the perceived value of the property. Number 3, avoiding post-sale issues. Attention to detail during renovation can prevent post-sale problems, which can be costly and damage your reputation. Ensuring proper installation and finishing of all elements can avoid future headaches. Number 4, enhances marketability. A home with detailed craftsmanship stands out in the market. Unique features or high-quality finishes can be a great selling point and may justify a higher selling price. Number 5, building a strong reputation. Quality workmanship leads to satisfied buyers and can enhance your reputation as a flipper. This can lead to repeat business, referrals, and a stronger brand in the long run. So, make sure you invest in skilled labor and stop cutting corners to save time or money. It will backfire in the long run. The devil is in the details, and you are too much of a badass to let this reflect on your business. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us my friend, Abby Robinson. Abby is co-owner of Robinson Squared, a real estate investment flipping company based in Charleston, South Carolina, and holds a master's degree in accounting. Shortly after obtaining her CPA license, Abby, along with her wife, Kelly, dove into the real estate investing business in early 2021. In the following 2 years, Abby and Kelly acquired 21 properties. Recently, their investment strategy has shifted from long-term rentals to fix and flips, and they are expanding their hard money lending enterprise, Coastal Capital Lending. It is my pleasure to have her on the show, so welcome, Abby Robinson.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Absolutely. So good to see you. I got to hang out with you in Puerto Rico at a conference, a mastermind, I guess it was, and had a blast. Your energy is just awesome, and you were so fun to hang with, and I'm thrilled to hear you are expanding into this whole hard money thing, and I can't wait to hear all about it. But before we get into that, how did you get involved with real estate? You went from getting your degree in accounting, which, by the way, I married Vance because he's an accountant. That's the only reason why I married him. I'm just kidding. But I hate accounting. And so, we definitely balance each other very well. So how did you get from accounting to real estate investing with Kelly, your wife?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I don't know how I got into accounting myself. I think I got to a point where it was like too late to change things in college. And then I just thought to myself, well, if I'm going to do this, I might as well do it 150%. And so, went on to get my master's and my CPA license. And so, I think, in my right out of grad school, I kind of had a few jobs until I fell into a controllership role with a few different small businesses. And I think working with, other business owners, I learned a lot. I learned of what not to, I learned a lot of what not to do as well. And so I think having that experience really helped open my eyes to how are we going to prepare for like the long run? How are we going to prepare for retirement? And, like most people, started getting into real estate because I read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, what's that? So I read that, and then we, started saving, I would say, for about 2 years. And then, just happened to fall into an opportunity to work for my brother. Actually, he runs an HVAC company. And so we grew up in Atlanta, lived there our whole lives, and brother lives over in Charleston, South Carolina. So we made the move from Atlanta to Charleston, and then immediately dove into real estate investment networks. And so that's kind of how everything kickstarted for us.
Very good. And I also see that you found a coach. So, and I am a big believer in coaching. I still hire coaches. I can't believe I am publicly announcing this, but I'm thinking about writing a book. And to do that, the first thing I got to do is get a coach. So I was working on that earlier this week. I can't believe I just announced that. Oh my goodness. All right.
You have to really put the pressure on yourself now. This is on the internet.
I know this is out there for the world to hear.
Wow.
Anyway. But I am a big believer in coaching because there are so many people, and like my badassery bestowment, you get people who watch HGTV and think, oh, I could do this. And they just dive in and then they cut corners, etc.
Yep.
So how did you find coaching, and how did that influence how you approached your real estate investing?
Yeah, so it was actually by accident. I mean, we saved up, $30,000 in 2 years. And for us, I know for some people that's not a lot, but for us, that was a lot of money at the time. And so we started going to these real estate investment networks and, or events rather, in Charleston. And I think it was probably the third or fourth time that we went to this specific group that, somebody approached us and they were like, what are you guys doing here? And we were like, oh my God, are we not supposed to be here? Like, we were just like so anxious. No, she was like, no, I want to get to know you guys. I've seen you a few times here. And that person ended up being Kelly Garrett, which I think a lot of people in the real estate world in Charleston know.
I love Kelly Garrett. Love her.
She's amazing. And so we kind of got to know her, and, they had this existing coaching platform that was part of, the real estate event that we were at, and, just opened up to her and started kind of talking about our goals and stuff. And it just made sense. It was just kind of an organic, meeting of the minds, if you will. And we realized that was going to cut into a big chunk of our savings, but we quickly understood that this is also an investment in ourselves. And right. I think, from that moment, I mean, we've had several different coaches, and I think we will always have a coach. I mean, it's just nice to have somebody to hold you accountable, but it's also nice to be able to look through a lens that somebody's already been through, and they can kind of help you, avoid pitfalls and
huge.
Yeah, I mean, huge. I mean, and it forces you to stay humble. I mean, we don't ever know all the answers. And I'll be the first to admit that. So I think having a coach to be able to at least just brainstorm with, I think is huge in terms of growth and development.
Absolutely. And Kelly Garrett, I've actually recorded her on this podcast. She is just top-notch human being. I adore her.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and you are definitely in good hands. And to be like one-on-one with Kelly Garrett, oh my gosh, that is amazing. So, all right. So you get a coach, you dive in, you get 21 properties. So these are basically, some are buy and hold, some are flips, and you did this over 2 years. That is huge. But one of your bullet points in the questionnaire here says how you dealt with adversity when the market shifted, and you had one of your largest purchases of all time. And, that is how real estate is. You've got to shift. So I love that you put this in here because it just, shares your vulnerability in this. But what happened with this big, your largest purchase at the time?
Yeah. So most of what we had been investing in the first 12 months were nothing but single family homes. We started in 2020 when the market was just rocking. And we, for the most part, we were buy and hold investors, but we did flip a few just because it made sense. I mean, I feel like back then you could just, paint the exterior and throw it back on the market. It was crazy.
So true.
But we took on, because we wanted to jump from single family to multifamily. And so we took down a small mom and pop mobile home park. And it was a 9-unit. It wasn't anything crazy. We had our plan in place. This was February 2022. So we had our plan in place in terms of what we were going to do, how we were going to, force equity into this deal, and we bought it with hard money. So we had, with hard money, you have a timer. Most hard money lenders, these loans are like 6 months, right? So by the time we got everything up and running, it was a few months into the project, but it was just at the time where the summer of 2022 was kicking in, and all of the banking, everything in the banking world started tightening up, right? So prior to us having purchased this, we had already lined up, a lender to be able to refinance out of this deal. But when we went back to them, they were like, no, we don't really want your ugly mobile home park anymore. We only want these types of assets because their, rates are raising, and, they're becoming pickier about what they want to invest in.
They can be more selective. Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And so we didn't really know what we were going to do. We'd never faced, this issue before. We were coming up on, our 6 months. We knew we were going to have to extend. I mean, it was a $650,000 loan. So it was, when you talk about hard money interest rates on top of that, and then you talk about having to extend with an extra point, but you're also paying your interest payments that month, it was getting very expensive. And so, with the help of mentors and coaches, we decided that we were going to syndicate it. And I knew nothing about syndication. I was like, I don't even know, I had to look things up. Fortunately, I was part of a mastermind where I reached out to the person that ran it, and they helped me, kind of just gave me the confidence. But also, when I approached this person, I kind of had a little bit of a game plan in place and said, hey, I don't expect you to do this for me, but I've attempted to put together at least an executive summary about how I would pitch this. Do you mind looking through it with me? And he was more than happy to sit down with me.
Tim Bratz?
This is Tim Bratz. Yes.
So shout out to Tim Bratz also on this podcast. And he was one of my coaches that I hired as well to get into multifamily. So I think the world of him. So you got all the good people in Charleston going on helping you through this. I love this.
I don't know how it happened, but I'm just fortunate that
you are fortunate.
Been put in front of these people.
Yep.
And it's just serendipitous, I think. And so, but yeah, we jumped on a few different a few different calls. Sometimes we were in front of the computer. Sometimes we were both traveling. I mean, it was just, but we went back and forth with it to a point where he kind of gave me, a method to how to present this information to people. And so that's what happened. And we started raising funds, and our goal was, to raise 650,000. We ended up raising 450. We did it in a 4-month time span. And we did it through friends and family. So we didn't announce this on, social media or anything like that. Okay. We did a 506B raise. And, we were getting to a point where, look, we've either got to raise the rest of this money or we've got to extend again, right? And so I went back to the original bank and said, hey, look, we've raised the majority, a good portion of this. Will you at least come in for a land loan? And they agreed to that.
Nice. So everything's negotiable. That is huge. Yes, great advice absolutely. Right there. Because a lot of people think, oh, nope, these are the rules. I can't, so, having conversations with your lenders is so very important. So many of the listeners listening are newer to real estate. So can you just break down a little, just briefly, on how syndication works? So for, the smaller projects, et cetera, you can get a hard money loan and then refinance it to a regular bank and get a mortgage at some point for something of the sort. But how does syndication work?
So syndicating is just like bringing other investors into your project and having them basically fund it, or at least help you fund it. It's always encouraged that if you're going to go down the road of syndicating, investors are probably going to want to see that you're putting your own money into it as well. So right. I would keep that in mind. But it's the act of purchasing an asset as a group, basically. So with limited partners as part of your deal, and typically, me as the operator, you'll be the GP in the deal, the general partner, and then you're bringing on limited partners to contribute to the purchase and, in a lot of cases, the renovation as well of the asset. And, investors are in it for various time periods. It could be 12 months, it could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. It really just depends on the nature of the project. And as an operator, I advertise to them like, hey, this is what, this could look like if it's an equity deal and they're, getting some equity out of it, cash flow, appreciation, depreciation. And so it's kind of a mixed bag. It kind of depends on, what the project looks like.
So quick question, why would an investor invest in a syndication deal? How did they make money?
So a lot of times they'll be making cash flow, right? They're going to be making.
So you're collecting rents on the mobile home park,
rents,
and
right,
then it's
correct.
Dispersed amongst the lenders at this point.
It's dispersed amongst the investors depending on what their equity share is in the deal, right? And then they'll be gaining depreciation out of it, especially if you do something what's called a cost segregation analysis, which allows you to accelerate depreciation on an asset. And that is huge. I mean, sometimes investors, they won't get into a project unless they know, or they get into a project for the reason of needing depreciation. And so that's huge because it lowers your tax liability. And so, if you've got other investments that are bringing in nothing but income, you need, something to offset that so that you're not giving all of your money away to Uncle Sam. And so, I think, did I go down a rabbit hole?
No, it's so impressive that you have been in this for such a short time and have already jumped into raising all this capital. And, so this is going to kind of segue into our next, my next question here, because you were living in Charleston and then you decided to move to Phoenix, Arizona, and you made a large penny off your property, and that evolved into your newest business adventure. So I laid that out pretty thick, so I'm going to let you take it from there. And I hope I did a good intro to that. But explain your newest business venture that you have going on?
Yeah, so it kind of happened by like accident, like funnily enough, and I don't know if I'll regret saying this now, but I was working for my.
I announced that I'm writing a freaking book. So
yeah, you stepped in it. I'll step in it. Okay. So, I said we moved to Charleston because I was working for my brother. Well, working with family is interesting. It can be really great and rewarding, and then it can also be extremely frustrating. Mm-hmm. And so, my brother and I decided to end that work relationship at the end of 2022. So in 2023, I took on, a couple bookkeeping clients, and I just eventually got to the point where I was like, you know what, if we're going to do this, like, if we're going to like dive straight into, just being an entrepreneur, which is something that we've had on our vision board for several years now, one of the reasons we got into real estate, then the time is now. So, again, like I said, I had a couple of clients this past year, but then decided, you know what, we got into a couple of private lending deals that we really, really liked. We liked it because it afforded us a different lifestyle, right? It was, it was kind of like it's a lot different than having to manage tenants in a mobile home park, or tenants in your single family home, or tenants in your short-term rental, which, I mean, that thing turns over so quickly that there's so much going on at any given moment. That it really checked the box for us. The lending piece did. So
let me just break this down real quick.
Yeah.
So you dove into becoming a private money lender, and that's lending. That's not syndication. This is just another avenue where you are dealing directly with the investor, and you are maybe either the first or the second position on the loan, as opposed to syndication where there's a group of investors on there. So you are very much, knee deep in this deal, but it is, tacking on to what you said, it's a very passive way to grow money in real estate, as opposed to dealing with tenants, dealing with quick turnovers for short-term rentals, et cetera. So I'm just reinforcing everything that you just said there. So
correct.
Now you got the bug for private money lending. And then where did this lead you from there?
And the reason that we kind of ventured off with this is because, again, I'm going to go back to the coaching and the mentorship. I mean, you want to diversify your income. And I kind of look at income as a table. You want to have a different leg in case one of those legs fails, right?
Right.
So, in making money off of these flips and having the cash flows from some of these long-term rentals allowed for us to save up a little bit and say, hey, look, we kind of need to put, this money somewhere. We don't just want to put it in a savings account. You can't save your way to wealth, right? And so that's where the opportunities for these private lending things popped up. And so, again, we really liked that. And so we decided, 2023, we made a trip out to Phoenix. And literally our first trip out here, we were like, on the way back, we were like, let's just be crazy for a minute and talk about moving out here. And by the time we had landed back in Charleston, we had decided, we're going to go ahead and just list our house and see what happens. And, we'd only been in it for a couple of years, but again, with what happened in 21 and 22, we were sitting on a pretty nice amount of equity. And so, of course we had to do something with that. We weren't going to buy right away because we don't know Phoenix very well. And so we want to, rent for a little bit to find out, what parts of the city we like and enjoy, and we want to kind of put our roots down. And you chose that rental with that beautiful ceiling fan above your head. Yes, this multicolored. This was a child's room that I'm having converted into my office.
I love it. I'm sorry.
I'm glad the listeners cannot see in here. Thanks for the call out. Thank you, Jen. But yeah, so we sold our house. It was crazy summer. Sold our house. We sold all of our furniture, drove across country with, a 6x12 trailer behind us with the dogs. And it was nuts. It was a lot of fun. And we actually settled pretty quickly. That we just love the city and, the outdoor lifestyle that the weather allows for. And anyway, so we decided, we'll take this, these funds that we now have to put into something, and let's just open our own fund, and, let's make this thing legit. Let's do a hard money lending company. Right. So, and I have a lot of education with this. It's not like we just, ripped it and decided we'll jump off the building and build our parachute on the way down. I went to some very detailed, mastermind and conferences, and to be able to gain this information and do it the right way first time through, right? So it's been a lot of fun. We've been raising since basically since we moved here, end of August, beginning of September. And we've got, we've got everything that we've raised, we've got out on the streets now in the form of loans. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. And so there's many listeners out there that are saying, oh, I want to get into house flipping, etc. And then they start getting their nails dirty and they're like, nope, not for me. But maybe they have sold a house. They don't want to reinvest. A lot of people are going through that right now.
Yeah.
And so this is a way for them to take those funds and they can invest it with a hard money lender like you, correct? And then you pimp out their money. That's the right term, correct?
Pimp out. Yes.
Pimp out the money. And, because there's many other people who don't have a house with a lot of equity in it when they sell it, and they need those funds. So you really just pair the two entities together. And I think it's so, so smart. Do you lend just in Phoenix area? Do you lend across the country? Where all does your hard money, and forgive me, I don't have it right in front of me, the coastal, what is it called?
It's coastal capital lending.
Coastal capital lending. And even though you're in Arizona now.
I know. There's a fun story behind that. Maybe that's on another podcast. But,
okay.
But yeah, I think that first to piggyback off your point, I think that if you're thinking about getting into real estate investing and you don't want to go swing a hammer, which I totally understand. That's not something we ever did either. I mean, we had full blown W-2 jobs when we first started this thing, you didn't have time for all this. So, we hired a lot of people out, but I think that, even if you don't want to go that far into, testing the waters of real estate investing, a good way to kind of dip your toe in is with these funds. Like if you can find a fund to get into, even if you're not accredited, if you can find a fund that allows non-accredited investors that can, you can keep your money in for a short amount of time, maybe 12, 24 months. It's a great way to understand how to receive passive income regularly while your capital is out there, right? And then you get your capital at the back and or at the end of the project, and then you've earned all this interest in the time that your capital has been tied up. So I think it's a really good way to just test the water, see if you like it.
So quick question.
Yes.
I want to cut you off here for a second. Sorry. Someone has $100K that was left to them in a will and they want to dump it in your fund. What are they looking at making as far as interest?
Yeah. So we pay 10% interest.
Is that dispersed monthly, quarterly, annually?
Yep. Great question. So on 10% interest, we ask to hold on to your funds for 12 months. And so that means that if you were to contribute $100,000 at 10% interest, you'd make $10,000 over the year, but we pay that monthly. And so you would receive $833.33 every single month.
I love that. And then at the end of the 12 months, they get their $100K back.
Exactly. Or they can keep it in the fund if they like getting that money in, right? So, and or you can put it in the stock market. I mean,
don't want to do that. All the rich people out there are investing in real estate. I mean, you got to go after the biggies, and that's what they're doing. That's because of exactly this type of situation. So I had cut you off. I didn't know if you had something that you wanted to add to that. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. We can keep going down this.
Well, so you've started this hard money company, Coastal Capital Lending.
Yes.
Where do you lend to?
Where are we lending? Yes. So most of where we're lending is going to be in the southeast of the United States. We're in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee. We will go into like Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas. There's a couple states out here, but not many.
Okay.
One of them, we don't even lend in Arizona. There are some huge compliance hurdles that you have to get over out here. And there's a lot of states you have to be licensed in out here.
Right.
And that requires time as a lender, right? So you have to be able to prove, I've been lending for 5 years, so I get to get my license now. But there's a lot of nuances, I would say, per state. And so a lot of where we're focusing right now is in the Southeast.
Okay. And so you have investors lending you $100K they are earning 10%. What do you charge to lend out that money?
Yeah, so we're charging through Coastal Capital Lending, we charge 13% interest. There's a couple points associated with that, and then there's a lender fee. And I would say that's pretty standard according to, what I've come across and the research that we've done. Yep.
Very, very good. So my last question here, before we move on to the second part of the podcast here, is What is your goal for the future?
Yeah, so we're big about, adjusting our lives, adjusting our business rather to live the lives that we want to live, right? And so I think, we didn't spend a lot of time thinking about that in our first 2 years of investing. It's like you're on to the next deal, man. It's like so transactional. You're like, what next? And get to it, and you're like at the closing table and you're like, oh my God, I took one down. This is so amazing. Celebration. And then you feel empty. You're like, oh my God, but I got to get to the next one. And
Gosh, so true, Abby.
Oh my God, it's so toxic. We spend way too much time, I feel like, looking to the future and not realizing how far we've come by looking backward.
Exactly.
And so I've done a lot of like self-reflection this year, and trying to do away with that mentality, right? And so our goal is, we're not big on like, I want to have 100 employees and I want to do X, Y, Z. That's just, and for people that do that, that is outstanding. That is, we don't want that because I can't do that.
That's like a job.
It is. Yeah. It's just not something that we want to sign up for. I think my wife and I were very simple people. We don't have any children. We've got dogs. We've got a goal of wanting to travel. And so we're going to build our life around being able to accomplish those things. And so, goals for the future. We want to fill our fund, obviously. We're still trying to raise. We're about 25% of the way through our raise with our fund. We've got goals in terms of, dollar amount for what we want to flip this year. We've got, typically we're the money partner, which might be obvious. We've got some really strong, partnerships in Charleston that we love. And so, JVing on stuff, huge for us. Our goal, I would say, is to focus on growing our customer base through Coastal Capital Lending by way of being successful raising capital through our fund.
Perfect. Well, I can see you are just going to nail that. And we went back and we were talking about the mobile home park and you have to shift. And I feel like you are also open and ready to do any shifting if need be. But I love that you have that goal in mind. And I am right there with you, Abby. I do not want to have 100 employees. I don't want 10, I don't want 5 employees. I just want to travel, hang out with my dogs, my husband, and just do our thing, because that to me, like managing other people, that sounds like a job, and I just don't want to do it. So I'm with you 100%. Well, at the beginning of this podcast, you heard me do a badassery bestowment, and I gave a little nugget to the audience. Do you have a badassery bestowment you can share with the audience?
Do I have a badassery bestowment? Yes, I would say, first of all, don't ever think that you've got it all figured out. I mean, that's the whole reason why we hired a coach to begin with. Always be ready to pivot, right? When the situation changes. I mean, like with what we had to do with the mobile home park. And then also prepare to have like several backup plans. I mean, it's okay to have backup plan B, C, and D, because you may have to actually reach over to backup plan D at some point. You can't ever be too prepared. And I would just say, again, stay humble, be open to receiving advice, but filter it to allow it to work for you and how you want to do things.
Very well said. Thank you for that. All right. We are going to dive into the second part of the podcast, which is what makes Abby Robinson a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Okay, so The Miracle Morning was, girl.
Okay,
I know.
Hal Elrod is the reason why so it's Chandler Bolt, who I guess helps him with his self-publishing, is who I have been like wanting to team up with to do my book. So I said it again, but I'm sorry. The
No,
Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod, Savers. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. And then this was recommended to me. I can't even remember who recommended it to me because I owe them a huge thank you. But it has changed. It has changed me. It has changed how I take care of myself. Everyone always complains about, how there aren't enough hours in the day. I obviously struggled with that too, which allowed me to make excuses for not having enough time to take care of myself, whether it was diet, exercise, reading, mental health, whatever floats your boat, right? Whatever you need to do, for yourself. That book opened my eyes to putting myself first through a daily routine. And I recommend it to everyone who has similar struggles that I just listed off. And if I don't do my routine now, I turn into a monster. Like it just affects the rest of my day.
That is so
totally throws
true.
Me off.
So do you do the miracle? There's an important question here. Do you do the Miracle Morning when you're traveling?
Oh, I have to. Yeah.
See, I slack, and exactly what you just said, I feel it. I'm like, oh, I didn't meditate today. I'm a miserable bitch. It's like,
yes.
I totally get it.
I at least have to have a couple, maybe not all of them, right? Mm-hmm. But I at least have to hit a couple, right? So that I feel like, okay, I did what I could. I know my body's under pressure. When we travel, everybody thinks it's like such a sexy thing, and it is not romantic. Living out of a bag and I also had to travel for work when I first got out of grad school, and it was just awful. Just being away from family that long is tough. So, but yeah, I have to do a few things in the acronym for Miracle Morning, at least to feel somewhat normalized.
Yes, so true. And by the way, my favorite Miracle Morning book was Miracle Mornings for Millionaires. If you haven't read that one, that is a really good one too.
Oh my, I'm writing that down right now.
That is a good one. And there's Miracle Morning for real estate agents, but they don't have one for investors yet. So I'm just saying, Hal Elrod, if you're listening, I love you. Be on my podcast. Okay. So the first A in Badass is for advice. You gave us some great advice of don't ever think you have everything figured out. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So I had to dig for this one. My art teacher in fourth grade used to tell me, I was a little bit of a perfectionist when I was a child for whatever reason. But she used to, and I would, I would make mistakes with my art, and she used to tell me, you can't ever mess up an art piece, because art doesn't have to be final. It's a living, breathing thing that can always be altered, right? And so I try and look at life that way. Even if you're faced with a difficult situation, it doesn't define you. You can get through it by making even just small, tiny adjustments that can work in your favor, at least to help you get through it. So I try and think about that.
I love that. Do you happen to remember your fourth grade art teacher's name?
Oh man, Jen.
I know. I put you on the spot.
Oh, God. No, I don't. I do not. It's locked away.
But isn't that wild that something that happened, so long ago is so there in the front of your brain? I love that. And
yes,
that was excellent advice. All right. The D in Badass is for drive. What drives Abby to be successful?
This one's easy. My family. I have big goals that I want to achieve, and in order for us to live a fun life, right, filled with travel, a lot of family time, a lot of dog time. And if we can't have fun in life, what are we doing all this hard work for, right? So
Amen.
My family.
Amen. Short and sweet. I love it. All right. The second A in Badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Yeah. So, as I kind of stated earlier, we're currently working to fill our real estate debt fund, which supports the operations of our hard money lending business, Coastal Capital Lending. Raising capital is not easy, especially in this environment right now. A lot of people they just want to hang on to their money. And they don't know what's going to happen in 2024. But we'll get there. And when we do, we'll do it all over again with another fund. So that's the primary goal.
Excellent goal. People are so scared of interest rates and everything right now, but this is when you're investing in real estate really you have the sale of the house to pay things off. You have your tenants to pay the mortgage, things like that. So I think this is going to be such a great vehicle. I'm so glad that you're doing this. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Well, so I don't mean to be repetitive here, but I'll go back to the miracle morning on this. I mean, if I don't complete my daily routine, whether it be in the morning, midday, in the afternoon, I mean, my whole day is off. And having an off day, that's all right. We're human beings, right? I received some great advice from a friend of mine. I was like, I was talking to Dan Rivers. I'm sure some people that are listening are going to know who Dan Rivers is. But I asked him, what do you do when, you're having an off day? And he said, I just lean into it. I mean, just, you're going to fight it all day if you don't. And then I don't let it last for more than a day. And then I come back the next day, with intention. And so I've really kind of adapted that advice from him. So it's been great.
Well, I love that the miracle morning is one of your systems, because people, when they think systems, they're like, oh, spreadsheets and this, and I got to, do this, this, and this. But if you don't set up your morning properly, the rest of your day can just go to shit rather quickly. So I love that that's your system. See, Abby, this is why we get along so well. All right. To wrap this up, the final S in badass is success. What does success mean to you?
I mean, right off the bat, I think financial freedom. I mean, again, being able to live the life that we want to live, the way that we want to live it. Like I said, we don't want a huge company. We just want enough to allow us to travel, spend more time with family, hang with our dogs. We're simple people, that simply want control of our time. And hard work and dedication to our goals, and focusing on that will get us there.
Well, it has been so fun to have you on the show, and I've missed your face. And so thank you for being here. How can the listeners find Coastal Capital Lending to either maybe invest into it or to borrow money from you? So what's the best way for people to find you?
Yep. So they can just hit our website, which is coastalcapitallending.com. I've got, we also have a Facebook page. I've got my personal page, and then we have a business Instagram page. I also have a YouTube page that has some longer kind of videos on there. I love teaching, and so I love to put out a lot of just content that will help other real estate investors succeed the way that we've been able to enjoy our success. So any of those vehicles, really, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel. I think I even have a LinkedIn, and then our Coastal Capital Lending website will have tabs on there for both borrowers and investors.
Well, Abby, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. It's been so nice chatting with you again. And we got to cut up soon.
Yes.
When we're on that side of the country, we'll need to get some dinner or something. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.